stuff, we don't know what's real and what's not real. The facts versus fiction of the information that's coming out about the candidates. Not only what the candidates put out, but what people put out about those candidates. And for me, I think that's the biggest challenge that COVID or any election has, is getting to the truth. I mean, I want to know what my candidate has done in the past. I don't want to hear what he has to say. I want to know his behaviors. I want to see what's going on, because his behaviors are a better predictor of his future decision making than just the stuff he says out loud.
Well, I would say this: never before have we been impacted by the decisions of our elected officials.
Or the non-decisions.
The non-decisions, right. The actions.
I would disagree, because I think World War II, World War I. So I think that we go in sometimes and we get into this conflict and fear factor and the things that people say that create a dichotomy between the thought processes that people assume that this is the worst that it's ever been. And
I'm not saying that, but we have been impacted in a way that we haven't in a long time. And you talk about behaviors. The presidential debate had a lot of behaviors on display, and you had just talked before about checking for behaviors. So how did the behaviors that you saw there and elsewhere underscore your passion for voting for people based on their behaviors and what they do and what they say?
You know, Trump was not my first choice in the primary back in 2016. You know, just like Biden probably wasn't the first choice for a lot of people in 2020 election. And so when I go in and take a look at the behavior on stage there, I felt sorry for this guy, because it was the first time he's had a chance to really attack people that have been attacking him for over 3.5 years. That right out of the box, this president got put into a defensive mode, not anything where anybody was looking to help him, but every time he turned around, somebody was out to stab him. And there's a lot of things that are coming out, some things that aren't coming out. So I look at that as more of a reactionary thing to 3 months of pent-up, or 3 years of pent-up frustration. When I take a look at a behavior for making a decision, when I then started to take a look at Trump from how is he going to be my president after the fact, you know, after the election in 2018 or 16, I looked at the business things that he did, the kind of negotiation skills that someone would need to put Trump Tower in the middle of downtown Chicago, you know, or build some of the developments that he's done. And I thought about the problems that we have in China, and I thought about the problems that we had in Mexico and Canada and some of the things that were going on. And would that make a difference if we had someone like that didn't care about the politics of his decisions? And have I liked everything that's gone on with his tweeting and some of the stupid things that he says? No. But I can respect the fact that our stock market's gone way up, that we have seen a huge increase in trade, that when nobody else, Republican or Democrat, would go in and put tariffs on China to say, stop, you're screwing the United States, this man did. And no matter what you think about him, somewhere along the line, if we're going to come to common ground, we got to accept that some of those things have been good for this country.
Well, Chair, I would just say to you, character matters. Character ought to matter in who we elect to be our president. And what troubled me about the person you just described was not only was he rude and disrespectful during the debate, he wouldn't even condemn white supremacy.
Oh, but he did. No. I would have to take issue with that, because he said, I agree with what you said.
He also, throughout the last 4 years, has insulted and disrespected numerous groups in this country. And I would just say this: the economy that you are applauding started under the previous president. and he turned that economy around, and the current president has added to that. So I hope you will give credit to the fact that the prior president started the good economy, turning it around. But beyond that point, you know, there's a book called Everything I Learned in Life, I Learned in Kindergarten. Oh, I'm sorry. Everything I need to know in life, I learned in kindergarten. There are some basic principles. Setting policy aside, play fair, be honest, say you're sorry when you hurt someone.
When you have a Biden up at on stage, Juan, going in and calling him a clown,
and when you say,
calling the President of the United States a clown,
like,
I disagree
when
that is not a two-way street.
When you say, we talked about facts and information and the truth. This election, we should not be debating some basic facts that are hurting all of us. This pandemic that you asked about is hurting all of us. It's not hurting the Democrats or not the Republicans.
Right, no, it's
not from the South or from the North.
Not even just from the United States.
All of us.
Global.
It's a global pandemic.
Exactly.
It's not a hoax.
So
It's
what's
not
your
gonna-
point?
The president has called it a hoax. He says
I've not heard the President call it a hoax.
Then you're not paying attention.
No, I've not heard him call this
He's
a
also
hoax.
said that it's going to
I
go
don't
away.
see how a man that actually caught COVID can call this a hoax.
Yes,
I don't see how a man that could call it, that stopped having people come in from China.
But initially called it a hoax.
Oh, really? So you had all the Democrats jumping on his case when in January he stopped travel from China, stopped travel from Europe, and your party was saying, no, this is not, you can't do this, this is blah, blah, blah. There is issues on
Is there a
both sides.
national response to the pandemic? A national response?
You know what?
We have a national crisis, don't we?
This is not, it's not in the national interest. Let me hold on, it is the way our Constitution is set up. The national response has to incorporate all your local, state, and county organizations. And the president does not even have the ability to go in and do some of the things that without the response of the health department in that county or the governors allowing. So he gave, and he actually supported all the governors in this country.
We all pay taxes through the IRS. We have a national military in this country. We have different branches of the same military.
And what's their job?
To protect the country.
At the borders and abroad.
But the nation is being faced with a national pandemic where we've lost over 200,000 people to COVID-19.
With a
Schools are shut down, and you don't think there should be a national response at all?
99 plus healing rate.
Each local mayor.
I had all my family.
I'm going to jump in.
Go for it.
We're going to move on.
Okay.
But I want to back it up a little bit because we're talking specifically about two politicians and political parties, but we want to talk about the people that have stepped up, right? We're talking about the people that have stepped up into these rings. Trump, we're talking about Biden, but there are so many people that exist in our country who aren't stepping up to run for political office, right? Do we think that this is our best and brightest that we're voting for in this election, not only nationally, but locally? And if not, why not? Where are these folks that are our best and brightest that could truly
They're out earning a living.
represent our, and so my question for you then is, where are they? Why are they not running? And what barriers exist?
I think we'll agree on this.
Okay, what barriers exist to get them to run?
Both of our parties are famous for selecting their candidates, funding who they want to fund, and making the party choice, if you will, and discouraging competition from incumbents. My party, the Democratic Party in Illinois, you won't even be allowed to get the voter file if you run against an incumbent Democrat for a state legislative race or a county race in Illinois. Our state party will not give you the access to contact voters. His party's not much better. And so there's a fundamental problem with our system. It discourages competition. The amount of money it takes to run for public office is atrocious. And the political elite, those who are in office, they genuinely don't want competition. Yeah. They don't want to be challenged. The idea that you run against someone who's already in office, offends the party, and they will disband you or call you a black sheep or marginalize you in local and state competitive races. You have to run against the party. And in Illinois in particular, almost 1/3 of our state legislature are appointed before they actually have to run for the seat. So the incumbent steps aside, the party elders in that community get together, gets the blessing of the party boss in Springfield, you get appointed, and then you run as the appointed incumbent with all of the trappings of incumbency.
I actually won my first county board race by running against the Republican 3 that was set up, and I took out their weakest link by working hard, knocking on doors, and getting to know the people.
Right.
But to your point, that's exactly what it takes. And so when you start taking a look at running for office, there is a lot of layers of government. And there's a lot of ways that people can be involved. And the higher that you get up, the more time it takes. Therefore, you have to have a certain kind of career.
But Chuck,
you have to have a certain kind of
don't get involved.
But you got to have a certain kind of career. You have to have a certain kind of.
Do you mean like flexibility in your career?
The flexibility with your career.
Okay.
You also have to have a pretty dang tough skin, not to take things personal, because you will get blasted by all kinds of people and people that you thought that were friends. Right from a party standpoint, you're hanging out with people and all of a sudden, you thought they were going to support you and they're like, nah, you know what, I don't want to do this, I'm going to do this.
To either raise money or have your own money. Because at the end of the day, particularly when you get beyond city council, local mayor, in smaller towns, and I'm not talking about mayor of Chicago, but
or even Naperville
or Aurora, you need to be able to raise or have 6 figures. And when you engage these political parties, the first question they want to ask you, can you raise any money? Do you have any money? They don't talk about ideas. They don't talk about your background. They want to know, do you have any money? And that's true for both parties. And my Democratic friends don't like it when we tell the truth about them because they want to act like only the Republicans care about money.
Everybody cares about money.
Have you ever? The Democratic Party is very much committed to money.
Try to do a single mailing. Try to do a single mailing in the primary, and then take and triple that for a general election.
That's right.
Because you're talking about a small segment, which is why you'll hear people go, well, I never got anything from that, because you never voted.
That's right.
When we have in our primaries 18% of the folks turning out to vote, so they're not engaged, not until you start getting into all the debates and the craziness of the presidential, then you start getting 80 to 85% coming out from different precincts. So, you ask about people don't care. So they don't care until it bothers their lives.
That's right.
They don't even know who their county commissioners are for the most part, or 3/4 of their school board.
Everybody knows who's on the school board now, because
forget asking.
To your point,
everybody knows everybody's going on. But ask them who's on their township politics and who's on their township boards. They won't know.
And to that point, people in public office, and I've been a local official, I've served in public office, I've got friends in public office. This is a secret they never want to admit to. They know that people aren't paying attention. So they become very arrogant in public office. Oh, they never say it. They never will admit their arrogance. But the way they approach re-election, the way they will dismiss their detractors, because they know 9 out of 10 people are not going to do the work it would take to remove them from office. So they get very comfortable, they get very pious, they get very arrogant, particularly when they move up the party chain, and when the party is going to fund them anyway.
I mean, I know that that's an absolute truth to some people, but we talked about character earlier, right? And really it has to do with the character of the individual that's in that office. Because I've been, I was on the county board for 16 years, and I was involved in a lot of different levels and a lot of different committees there from that standpoint. I've spent a lot of time in Washington with a lot of different things. Are there arrogant people there? Yes. Are there people that are just trying to do the right thing? Absolutely. We're human. And what character you brought to the table is the character you're going to use while you're there.
They're not bad people.
So
They just get complacent.
well, you got both. You got complacentness.
Yeah.
You got people that think that they're owed something,
Right.
and you got people that are there because they really want to help their community and do the right thing for the people that they're working with and for.
Regardless of who wins the election, I want to know, do you feel, or how can we reach common ground? And specifically, if your party loses, what would you do to reach across the aisle to do healing in our country from a health perspective, from a social injustice perspective, from a jobs perspective, from a morale perspective? What do you recommend that your party do if you lose in order to help us all reach common ground?
You know, we're all Americans. We all were born in the United States, grew up here, however you've been educated, you know, you went through the educational system. When there is a common enemy, we seem to come together. And what we have to realize is elections, we've been having elections for 200 years. I wasn't super happy when Obama won, in the last go-around. But I worked with everybody that he had, and I had no problem working across the aisle when I was in there. I think what we used to nickname this on the inside, and you may have, I don't know if your side says this, but this is crazy season. Everybody's just crazy. And they go crazy until it's over with, and we will have a smooth transition of power if Donald Trump doesn't win. And hopefully Joe Biden will do good things for our country if he gets in. And I think...
What do you think Republicans can do? I don't want to talk about the past. What can we do to help us move forward?
I think Republicans, Democrats, again, do your job. If you're an elected official, you study the issues, you make good policy decisions by what you have available. If you are just a mom doing soccer with your sons and daughters, and you happen to vote Republican, I'm not going to go in and yell at you for being a Democrat. We're going to go in and have a beer, or we're going to go out to dinner, and we're going to just move forward. I think that the only way we can do this is to really remind ourselves, Republican, Democrat, we're Americans first, party second. And if you identify so much with one party, you need to back up and take a look at what makes the world tick. And it's not our differences, it's our similarities. And so any group needs to go in and take a look at what makes us similar and not different, because that's the only way we come. I used to referee or teach in a behavior disorder with behavior disorder students, and I had gangs from all over the city of Chicago and Aurora and so in my classrooms, they would fight like cats and dogs, and they would throw up signs about their gang, whatever. I'd get them on a basketball court, there would be another team that they were going against. Oh my God, now these guys are playing together as a team. It seems like when we find common ground, we can come together.
I think it's going to be very hard if the Democrats lose, because it'll be very painful. Because for a lot of Democrats, this election is about the soul of America, who we are as Americans. You talk about common ground, seeing us all as Americans. A lot of us on the left don't believe that some on the right see all of us on the left as Americans, that you see us as your brother, as truly committed to the democracy to make America as good as its promise. Recently Joe Biden quoted Doc Rivers, the former basketball head coach of the Clippers, now of the Sixers. And the question he asked was, why do black Americans love America so much when America has never loved them? And for a lot of us, that's how we really feel. And so what we remember, we talk about an election being over. When Obama became president in 2009, a group of Republicans got together the day of his inauguration to plot how to make him unsuccessful, or to quote a Republican majority leader, how to make him a one-term president. That's not common ground. That's not coming together.
Well,
not on the first day of his presidency.
This started with, okay, we can sit here and talk about Trump.
Hold on,
and
wait.
what
I didn't say
happened
Trump.
here- No,
Which
you-
is Trump?
I understand
Trump
that.
didn't do that. That
No,
was
but what the
Newt
Democrats,
Gingrich,
you
Mitch
you
McConnell.
mentioned Republicans.
Yes.
So the
I'm
Democrats
hoping-
started this with
Let's
the
let him finish.
Republicans. Well,
so
hold
I'm
on a
hoping-
second.
No, hold on
You
a
said I
second,
could go
'cause
in and
No,
interrupt.
because we're wrapping up.
So
That
my
was the last
point is,
question.
my
I know you're
point
having fun.
is, if we lose, I hope we don't get together to try to make Trump unsuccessful.
Yeah.
I hope we come together and try to we strengthen America to solve this pandemic, because nobody wants to be sick.
No.
How do we turn our economy around? Because all of us want jobs and good paying jobs, and we all want good schools and safe schools for our children. And how do we also heal the racial divide? That requires some very difficult, hard conversations that I'm hoping we can have, and have it with integrity and honesty.
And I would hope that we could continue that process as well.
Absolutely.
As I said before, I've been on HBCU campuses for the last 20 years working with the universities. My first client was FAMU down in Tallahassee with that group. So I've been having this conversation for a very long time, and we can continue this off
Hope
the
we
air.
will. Good.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Finding Common Ground. And just remember to get out and register and vote in this upcoming election.
Thank you.